Mother-in-law's party turned chaotic when my husband's ex kissed him. I walked out, now facing backlash from his family. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and my husband is 31. We've been together for 3 years, married for 2. When we first started seeing each other, he told me he'd only ever been in one other serious relationship before me, his high school sweetheart who also just so happens to be his twin sister's best friend. They were together from their senior year of high school until they were 27. Things ended badly between them. He'd proposed, but she turned him down, telling him she wanted to see the world and wasn't ready to settle down. That was about a year before we met. This past weekend, we went to his mother's birthday party at my in-laws' house. As soon as we walked through the door, I noticed this woman I didn't recognize. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I was just there for the family, to celebrate my mother-in-law. As the party got going, I mingled and chatted, just trying to enjoy myself. But then, out of nowhere, this woman approached us. She completely ignored me, turning straight to my husband and demanding, "Are you seriously going to keep ignoring me?" I was thrown for a loop. My husband glanced at me, probably seeing the confusion on my face, and finally introduced us. This is my wife M. Baby, this is S, my ex. Before I could even figure out what to say, she reached in and hugged him. To his credit, he quickly stepped back and pulled me between them, putting a barrier up. From that moment on, I felt on edge, but I decided to bury my questions for later. No way was I going to cause a scene in the middle of the festivities. Eventually, we all gathered as my mother-in-law blew out the candles on her cake. The family went around making speeches, first my father-in-law, then my husband, all heartfelt tributes to my mother-in-law. Then it was my sister-in-law's turn, and that's when things really started feeling off. She began her speech by saying, "My mother must be excited to have her true daughter-in-law back in the fold. Welcome back, S." The entire room fell silent, all eyes bouncing between me and this woman, S. I felt so uncomfortable and exposed. My husband noticed and quietly asked if I wanted to leave, but I told him no. I wasn't about to storm out and make everything worse. I excused myself to go to the bathroom, just to get a breath and collect myself. My mother-in-law followed me in, apologizing for her daughter's behavior and reassuring me that she knows how happy her son is now, that she can see the love between us. I thanked her, genuinely grateful for her kindness, and tried to compose myself before heading back out, but as soon as I stepped outside, I walked right into chaos. My sister-in-law was loudly chanting "Kiss. Kiss." My husband was telling her to stop, but S had him by the arm. Just as I approached, S grabbed my husband and kissed him right on the lips. And the worst part, he just stood there, completely frozen. Red-hot anger shot through me. Without saying a word, I turned on my heel, grabbed my things, and walked out. I couldn't stand another moment in a room with people who had no respect for me or my marriage. I called an Uber and left. Not even 2 minutes into the ride, my husband started texting, asking where I was. Before I could reply, he called me. I ignored it, told him over text I was on my way home, and then turned off my phone. When I got home, about 15 minutes later, he arrived. He asked why I'd left. My anger finally boiled over. I told him outright how disgusted I was by the absolute disrespect, not only from his ex and sister but by his passiveness throughout. I brought up how his ex had been openly flirting all day, and then, the final straw, her kissing him. I needed to know, point blank, "Do you still have feelings for her?" He swore up and down that he didn't, that he'd just been blindsided and should have acted faster and firmer. I told him I was disappointed with how he handled things, and yes, still mad. I just went to bed, saying I had a headache. The next day, my phone was flooded with angry texts from his sister. She accused me of being a drama queen, blamed me for ruining their mother's birthday party, even told me my attitude was the reason my husband would leave me for S. That was it. I handed the phone to my husband and told him straight, either he needed to deal with his sister, or I would. So, was I wrong for just walking away? Update 1. I began by sincerely apologizing to my husband for not having his back. As so many have pointed out, he was sexually harassed by his ex, plain and simple. There were no excuses this time. I told him how sorry I was for not seeing it from his perspective. Honestly, I got so caught up in my own insecurities that I failed him. Even though he never gave me any reason to doubt him, I was overwhelmed by the fear that maybe he still had feelings for his ex. That fear took over my judgment. His sister had never been this openly hostile to me before, and somewhere in my mind, I started inventing scenarios. Maybe she was hostile because she knew something I didn't. But that paranoia was all on me, not him. Only me. I explained that the real reason I left that night wasn't just because I was pissed off, but because I was terrified. I was so scared of losing him and everything we had. Now I see more clearly, my own actions could end up being the very reason I lose him, not anyone else's. He told me that, when the kiss happened, he froze because he couldn't believe his ex would actually go that far. After I left, he told me he confronted both his sister and his ex. His mom stepped in and told everybody it was time to go home. I apologized again, but he admitted it really hurt that I would just leave him like that. The issue wasn't even so much the kiss itself, it was the fact that I could doubt him so quickly and so easily. On Sunday, things were tense between us. We were just dancing around each other, barely talking. Eventually, he called his mom for advice. She told him that while she absolutely understood his side, she also understood mine. Her advice was simple but powerful: we're both adults, and we just need to sit down and talk about our concerns honestly. Later, she texted me herself, "Marriage is not for the faint of heart, it's not all roses and sunshine. The best you can do is communicate and trust in each other." I called my mother-in-law and apologized for the way I left, insisting I had no intention of ruining her party. She assured me I didn't, but added that, if I want this marriage to work, I need to trust my husband. That stuck with me. I told her about the messages my sister-in-law had been sending me, and that's when she revealed something else. According to my sil, my husband had supposedly been texting his ex, saying he was unhappy with me and just waiting until she was ready for something more. My mill shut that down, telling her daughter that it made no sense. If her brother was really waiting for his ex, he never would have married me in the first place. If she believed otherwise, she clearly didn't know her own brother. After that, I blocked my sister-in-law. My husband called her up and told her that, for the time being, he didn't want to see or hear from her at all before blocking her. 2. We let his parents know about everything, and they reassured us. They told us not to worry about her squabbles because eventually she'd come to her senses, and if not, that was her own problem. Maybe none of this is easy, but I finally see that it's about us, about trusting in each other, no matter how hard things get. Update 2. Blocking my sister-in-law felt like taking a deep breath after months of suffocation, but my peace was short-lived. Today, she marched right up to my house with S in tow, practically banging down my door and demanding to be heard. The nerve of them, I could see the drama brewing in their eyes before I even opened the door. As soon as I cracked it open, my sil tried to shove her way inside. Without missing a beat, I planted myself in the doorway and let her know they could say whatever they needed to say from right where they stood. No way was I about to let them steamroll their way into my living room. That's when S launched into her melodramatic tale, voice quivering as she spun this story about guilt, about not being able to live with herself for sleeping with my husband and sneaking behind my back. My jaw just about hit the floor. For a few seconds, I was absolutely speechless, but not stupid. I remembered what my mama always told me: fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'd learned my lesson the hard way, and there was no chance in hell I'd doubt my husband over this circus again. With my resolve steeled, I looked at them and said, "You know what? Come in." My husband wasn't home, he'd gone to the gym with a friend. So I picked up my phone, called him, and told him point blank that his sister was at our house with S, and I just invited them inside. I said we'd wait for him, and I meant it. S, clearly nervous, tried to shove some so-called proof in my face, desperate to convince me. I cut her off and told her to wait until my husband got home, that she could show me then. She kept on, insisting my husband would just deny it, begging me to listen to her now. But I stood my ground. "I made that mistake last week," I told her, "and let you two harass my husband. That's not happening again." What better way to clear the air than to have everyone involved put their cards on the table at the same time? 5 minutes later, my husband walked through the door, barely looking, surprised to see the trio, me, my sister-in-law, and S, waiting for him. And that's when the real show began. S wasted no time, diving into another sad story and pleading with my husband to just admit to her version of things. My sil sat beside her, promising she'd back both S and my husband no matter what. But when S tried to show me these supposed incriminating texts, my husband finally lost his patience. Calm as ever, he told her to text the number in the messages, and then handed me his own phone. S immediately flinched, saying, "That's not necessary." But I was done with these games. "Better yet," I said coolly, "let's call the number from the message thread." Update 3. This year, my husband and I hosted Thanksgiving. I invited my siblings and their spouses, my parents, and my in-laws. About a week before, my mother-in-law called to ask if she could bring my sister-in-law. Apparently, Sil wanted to apologize and explain her side of things, whatever had been going on in her mind. I have to admit, I wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea, but at the same time, I couldn't stand the thought of someone being alone over the holidays. I told Mill that I'd speak to my husband first. When I brought it up with him, my husband was absolutely against it. He said, hell to the no, insisting this was supposed to be a peaceful day and he didn't buy that the apology was genuine. I agreed with him and called Mill back to let her know we weren't comfortable having Sil join us. Mill assured me she understood. Thanksgiving Day itself was wonderful. We all relaxed, played games, and basked in family warmth. When my husband and I decided to announce that we're expecting, I'm still in shock that I'm going to be a mom. We explained we'd just waited to pass the 12-week mark before sharing the news with the people most important to us. Everyone was so excited, the grandmas immediately started making plans, as this is the first grandchild on both sides. We ended the day with hugs and laughter, wishing everyone goodbye. That Sunday, after running a few errands, we came home and found a mysterious package on our porch. I asked my husband if he'd ordered something. He hadn't. We brought it inside, curious. When I opened it, I found it full of baby items, and for a second, I thought maybe my mom or his had sent it and just forgotten to mention it. Then I found a card. It read, "It was always our dream to be parents, can't wait for this new journey with you, it doesn't matter how it came to be but we can finally start our little family. Love SX." Immediately, I saw red. My husband grabbed the card, read it, cursed the very existence of that woman, and started to take the box to the trash. I stopped him, not because I wanted to keep it, but because, as much as I'd love to burn it, it seemed wasteful when there are so many mothers who don't have enough for their babies. I proposed we drop it off at a shelter or church. While I thought this was just one last desperate attempt on S's part to get what she wanted, my husband was fixated on how she'd found out we were expecting. He called his mom and asked her point blank if she'd told his sister. Mill explained it hadn't been intentional. She had been on the phone with my husband's grandma, who lives 2 states over with Mill's sister, and still happened to be at the house when she heard the news. But after Sunday, for days in a row, we returned home to find packages on our porch, each one with a bizarre card, always signed S. It was creeping us out. Then yesterday, instead of a package, I came home to find my sister-in-law herself waiting on our porch. I didn't even turn the car off. Instead, I called my husband right away. He told me to wait in the car. He was about 20 minutes away. As I sat there, Syl came knocking on my window. I rolled it down, just enough to hear her. She asked if we could talk. I told her my husband would be home soon, and she could wait until he got there. She simply nodded and backed away. When my husband arrived, he immediately started in on her, demanding to know what she was doing at our house and telling her to get her delusional friend to stop sending gifts and freakish notes. He made it clear that if it didn't stop, we would have to go to the police. Suddenly Syl burst into tears and started apologizing. My husband kept laying into her, but I asked him to hold off for a moment and let her explain herself. She told us that last week, she'd gone out drinking with S. They ended up at S's apartment, and while there, she grew curious and looked at S's phone to see if my husband had been texting her. He hadn't. He'd never contacted S since he and I got together, but what she did find startled her. The messages S showed her weren't from my husband at all. The number didn't match. Syl said a chilling numbness set in. She left, asking S to meet up the next day to talk. When she confronted S about her true intentions, S tried to dodge the question. Finally Syl pressed harder, and S simply said, "Because now he can provide me with the life I deserve." That was it. Syl walked out. Now, through tears, she confessed she was truly sorry. She admitted she had been manipulated by S, maybe even had an unhealthy attachment to her, which blinded her to reality. She said she knew it would take time, maybe we could never fully forgive her, but she hoped one day she could earn our trust again. I told her honestly that I couldn't forgive her right now, but the future was uncertain. My husband said much the same. We need space and time, and she has to do better, not just for us, but for herself. Update 4. Yesterday started with a text from a coworker. "Your registry is so cute, love the theme." My stomach dropped. We hadn't made a registry yet. She sent the link, and there it was, my husband's last name, a cutesy title about our little family, and a cover photo that made my skin crawl. It was me. From behind. In the serial I'll buy our house. I was wearing the same green coat I'd had on the day before. The caption under the photo said, "Mama and baby caught candid." I called my husband at work and he was home in 10 minutes flat. We sat shoulder to shoulder at the table, clicking through. The registry asked for gift cards and high-ticket items, shipping to a P.O. box 2 towns over. The About Us referred to my husband by name. And in the co-parents section, it listed him in S. We printed everything and drove straight to the police station. The officer at the front desk asked how long it had been going on, and my husband started laying it out cool and precise. Unwanted packages, notes, showing up at the house, now using a photo of me without consent. We gave them the porch cam footage we'd saved of the deliveries. I handed over the cards, the box with the Love SX, and the screenshots of the registry. They took our statement and told us to go to the courthouse for a protective order. It sounds dramatic to say out loud, but walking into that courthouse felt like crossing a line in the sand. We filled out the paperwork, stapled copies of everything, and sat under fluorescent lights until a judge signed off on a temporary order. No contact, no social media, no third-party messages, no coming within 100 yards of our home, my job, or my doctor's office. A deputy served her that evening. I know because my sister-in-law texted me 3 hours later. She's hysterical. I turned my phone face down and held my husband's hand until the house felt quiet again. That quiet didn't last. This morning, our OB's office called to confirm my appointment and gave me the updated security code we'd asked them to put on my file. The receptionist sounded flustered. Someone had tried to move my appointment as my sister, but couldn't answer the code. I thanked her, hung up, and felt my kiddo kick forward for the first time like a little drumbeat under my rib, as if to say, "I'm here." I cried, then I laughed, and then I cried again. We went to the hearing this afternoon. S showed up in a beige sweater dress with her hair curled, eyes glassy and bright. She tried to sit behind us. The bailiff moved her to the other side of the room. When the judge called our case, my husband stood next to me, hands folded, jaw set. S started with the same violin solo she's been playing for months. She said she was sorry I was confused, that she and my husband had a history, that I was acting out of insecurity, and the packages were well-meaning, and then she pulled out a manila envelope like it was her trump card. "I'm pregnant," she said, chin lifted, and slid an ultrasound toward the judge. My husband didn't move. He didn't even look at her. He looked at me. And I felt steady. The judge looked up. Congratulations. Sit tight. He glanced at our stack. What do you have? I passed him the registry prints, the notes, photos from our doorbell cam, and then the last page, which my husband had added on a whim an hour before. His friend had run a reverse image search on the ultrasound as posted on her private account last week. Same angle, same little gummy bear profile, same exact speckle pattern in the top left corner. It came back to a stock photo from a pregnancy blog. He'd written the source under the image. The judge looked at her. Ms. S., where did this image come from? She opened her mouth, then shut it. She flicked her eyes at my sister-in-law, who was sitting in the back with my mother-in-law and could not meet anyone's gaze. It's my scan, S said, but quieter now. My printer. The judge set the page down. Even if you were pregnant, it is not relevant to your repeated unwanted contact with this petitioner. He tapped the registry with his pen. This is not affection. This is harassment. He granted a 1-year order. He told her any violation, any third-party attempt, any accidental run-in would be reported and prosecuted. He told her to take a breath and move on with her life. S stared at the floor. As we were leaving, she reached for her purse and I saw one more thing fall out, face down. My husband bent, picked it up, and placed it on the table next to her without a word. It was a return label to that same P.O. box, printed yesterday. We got to the car and finally exhaled. It felt like letting out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding since that birthday cake. My phone buzzed, an email from the registry site, thanking me for reporting fraud. They'd shut it down and flagged the P.O. box. On the way home, my husband took a detour and drove us past the park where he proposed to me. The trees were bare and the sky was that pale winter color that makes everything look cleaner than it is. He pulled over, put his forehead to mine, and said, "It's just us." When we pulled into our driveway, there was a small envelope tucked under the welcome mat. No handwriting, no heart doodles, just a type label. For one stupid second my heart tried to leap into my throat again, until I saw the sender, the courthouse. It was our copy, stamped and official, with the judge's signature bleeding through the paper in deep, serious ink. I slid it into a plastic sleeve and stuck it on our fridge next to the little black and white picture of our real baby, arms up over their head like they were stretching, like they'd been asleep this whole time and were finally waking up. Update 5. Wednesday night, on the way home from the grocery store, my phone pinged, AirTag found moving with you. I froze so hard I almost missed the turn to our street. My husband saw my face go white and pulled into the first gas station we found. The pump light made the wet pavement look like glass. He told me to stay in the car and went around the back, running his hand under the bumper like he was checking a heartbeat. He found it on the passenger side, taped up and pressed into a little hollow by the wheel well. A white coin with a dirty fingerprint across the Apple logo. He slid his wedding ring off with his teeth and used the edge to pry the tape. It peeled slow, gummy strings catching his knuckles. He winced when he finally popped it free. He didn't say a word. He dropped the AirTag into the empty metal travel mug in our cup holder and screwed the lid on tight. The chirp went dead like a bird cut off, mid-note. We drove straight to the station again, grocery bag sweating in the backseat. The same officer from the registry day was at the front desk. He took the mug like it was a live thing and had someone in the back scan the serial. "It'll be tied to an Apple ID," he said, tapping it into the report. "We can subpoena the info, and in the meantime, you have an active order." He leaned in a little, voice lower. "Placing a tracking device is its own charge." On the way out, the AirTag chirped through the metal like it was trying to be brave. My husband touched my shoulder and said, "We're okay." And I believed him in a way I didn't know I could, even with my heart hammering against the seatbelt. We took the car straight to our mechanic and asked him to check the undercarriage, the wheel wells, the trunk, anywhere someone could tuck something. He looked at my husband, then at me, then at my belly, and said, "Give me an hour." He rolled himself under and banged around with a flashlight. No second tracker, no wires, no cameras. Just the one. I sat on a plastic chair with a faded Goodyear logo and felt our kiddo kick 2 hard times like a drumroll in a quiet hall. I pressed my palm there and whispered, "Okay, okay. I hear you." The detective called the next morning. "We've made contact," he said. Calm, clinical. He'd taken the affidavit to a judge, gotten the subscriber info, and then driven out with a partner. The Apple ID was hers. They picked her up at her apartment, beige coat on, keys in her hand. He said she tried to tell him she'd found the AirTag in the parking lot and was going to turn it in. He said he didn't respond to that. He said he just read her the order out loud, the part where it says no direct or indirect contact, no surveillance, no tracking. He said she cried, then went quiet. He said she asked to call her friend. He said, "Not right now." He called it a book and release, misdemeanor stalking, violation of a protective order, court date in 3 weeks. Conditions added, GPS on her own ankle, surrender passport, no drive-bys, no accidental encounters. He told us to keep doing exactly what we were doing, save everything, call if anything felt off. My husband thanked him. "I just managed, thank you for taking us seriously." He paused and said, "Ma'am, you did everything right. We had our anatomy scan that afternoon, I didn't want to reschedule." My husband brought 2 IDs and the order folded into his coat like a talisman. The tech dimmed the lights and put warm gel on my belly, and there was our baby, bigger than last time, hand up by their face, foot flexed like a tiny frog. The tech asked if we wanted to know. My husband looked at me, eyes soft and tired and shining. We said yes. It felt like someone opened a window in a stuffy room when she told us. We didn't cry, not then. We laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from your ribs. On the printout, our kiddo had their chin tilted like a dare and I thought, of course. Of course it would be you. When we walked back to the car, there was a folded piece of paper on the windshield tucked under the wiper. My stomach did a full somersault. My husband held up a hand, pulled his phone out, and took a photo before he touched it. He used a napkin to lift it, unfolded it with the corners. It wasn't her handwriting, it was printed in block letters. 2 words, be happy. He held it up to the sun like he could read the intention through the fibers. Non-contact message, he said, like he was reminding himself and telling the air. We drove straight from the lot to the station again. The officer at the desk recognized us and called the detective without us even asking. He took the note with the napkin still wrapped around it, put it in a clear bag, then pulled up the clinic's security feed. We stood there watching a little square of our car in grainy black and white. A man in a delivery uniform walked past and never looked up. A woman with a stroller angled around the bumper. A teen in a hoodie flicked his skateboard up into his hand. A minute ticked, too. Then a hand, just a hand, from the bottom edge of the frame slid in and tucked the paper under the wiper like a snake slipping under a door. The detective sighed. Third party, he said. She's testing it. He called the number on the uniform sleeve we could just make out 2 minutes earlier and asked for the shift list. He sent a patrol to pull parking lot footage from the store next door to try to catch the rest of the body attached to that hand. We'll add it, he said. You still did the right thing bringing it in. That night, my sister-in-law texted my husband, then me, then my mother-in-law, who called me while I was brushing my teeth. She's saying she doesn't understand why she's being treated like a criminal, Mill said, voice tight. I could hear dishes clattering in the background like she was cleaning to keep from crying. I told her it's because she's behaving like one. She went quiet. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm so tired. Thursday morning, my husband opened his email and went still. An event invitation. Subject line, shower for baby, our last name. The host name was something we didn't recognize, a throwaway Gmail. The venue was a public park, 2 towns over, gazebo number 3, next Saturday. The little banner across the top said surprise. In curling pink script. My husband hit forward to detective so fast he almost knocked his coffee over. I called my boss and told her I'd be working from home for a bit. She said, of course. She said, do you need anything? And I wanted to say, I need a different life, but what I said was, just a quiet day. The detective called back quick. We'll have someone there, he said. If she shows, it's clean. If she doesn't, we'll add it. Either way, don't go. We weren't going. We sat at our kitchen table and made a list of baby names on the back of an envelope from the courthouse and argued about family middle names and whether this tiny person would be a sleeper or a screamer. Somewhere in the middle of all that, it hit me like a hard truth in the shower, we were still allowed to be excited. The world could be the way it is and we could still say the name out loud to see how it feels in our mouths. This afternoon, the mechanic from down the street knocked on our door. He was holding a small magnet with a bit of tape still clinging to it. Found this in the gutter out front when I was walking home, he said, a little sheepish, like he was worried he was overstepping. Thought you'd want it. My husband took it and stood there with it in his hand like a clue in a board game that suddenly makes the whole picture make sense. I thanked him. He shrugged. My wife reads everything, he said. We're rooting for you. He looked at my stomach and added, for all 3 of you. I ate an orange the way my grandma taught me, over the sink so the juice can run down your wrists without making a mess, and for the first time in weeks it tasted like an orange and not a warning bell. After dinner, my husband taped the ultrasound from today up next to the order on the fridge. The baby has their fist near their ear like they're holding a tiny phone. He kissed the top of my head and said, hello? Update 6. Saturday morning I woke to rain whispering against the windows and the smell of coffee already filling the kitchen. My husband had the Allen key between his teeth and the crib half assembled on the living room rug, boards laid out like a map we were deciding to follow, together. We had just figured out which screw was the right one by holding it up to the light when his phone buzzed. The detective. Don't come, he said right away, like he knew us. But it's happening. We put him on speaker and sat cross-legged on the floor, my husband bracing a corner while I threaded the slats. The detective's voice was weirdly calm as he painted it for us. Gazebo number 3 in a gray mist, 2 pink balloons and 1 silver star tied to the railing, a sheet cake balanced on a picnic table with our last name iced in looping script. A woman we didn't know stood under the roof with a clipboard and a cardigan, dutiful and brisk, telling anyone who showed up that mama was resting at home. She had a Polaroid camera and a basket labeled books for baby. People came. Not dozens, but enough to make the picture feel like a dare, an older couple carrying a wrapped box and a teething ring on top, 2 women in church dresses, a teenager with a diaper raffle ticket, printed off the internet. None of them looked like they had bad intentions, they looked like people who got caught in a story they didn't realize they were in. Tasked through a Facebook group, the detective said. She's got Cash App receipts and an email chain. We've got her phone. He paused. We've also got a drone operator trying to be invisible behind the azaleas. I could hear him turn his face away from the receiver and say, "Go ahead and shut that down." Back in our living room, the crib gave a little creak as my husband tightened a bolt, the metal squeal a small, honest sound in a day full of performance. The ankle monitor pinged 10 minutes later. She's moving, the detective said, and I could see it even though I couldn't. A rideshare idling by the curb 1 block off the park, the beige coat we'd begun to dread, a woman with her hair pulled low and sunglasses on despite the rain. She didn't step out, not right away, she just sat there like she was trying to breathe through a stitch in her side. The perimeter around the gazebo swallowed the car on the screen the detective was watching, tiny dots resolving into one big violation. "We've got her," he said. The line went quiet for a few minutes. I traced the ridge of my belly and felt our kid press back, a little firm oval rolling across my palm like an answer. "Then, she's in custody." Another pause, and then, more quietly, "We'll ask for no bail, your order stands." We didn't go to the park. We stayed on our rug with the packaging foam sticking to our socks and screwed the crib together until it didn't wiggle anymore when we shook it. When it was done, my husband lay back inside it, arms folded, ridiculous and lanky, and looked up at me through the slats. "Solid," he said, voice echoing a little. I leaned over and tapped his nose. He caught my finger and kissed it like he was sealing something. At dinner time, the bell rang. We both flinched so hard we almost knocked our plates straight off the table. My husband checked the app, saw a face we didn't recognize, and opened the door with the chain still on. A woman in her 50s stood on our stoop, hair pulled back into a no-nonsense bun, eyes that had seen a lot and were somehow still too young. She introduced herself in one breath as S's mother. She didn't try to come inside. She kept her hands wrapped around a blue file folder like she needed to hold something or she'd float away. "I heard," she said. The word seemed to cost her. She glanced past my husband to the ultrasound picture on the fridge and blinked like she was resetting. "I'm not here to excuse her," she said, and her mouth trembled and then recalibrated into something stubborn. "I'm here to ask you to keep doing what you're doing." She had printouts inside that folder, court dockets from another county 2 years ago with names in black bars, an old protective order that looked so much like ours it made my stomach go cold. She told us, in pieces like she was stepping around glass, that S had a history longer than we knew. There had been a coworker. Before that, a professor's wife. The same patterns, messages and gifts and happenstance, the same crescendo. "I tried," she said, fingers wide on the folder. "Counselors, inpatient, you name it. She is very good at telling the story that keeps her in the center of the room." She took a breath. "I'm sorry it was your room." My husband widened the door and asked if she wanted water. She shook her head. "I won't stay," she said. "I wanted to look you in the eye and tell you you're not crazy. And to ask, please, don't let her talk you out of this. It's the only thing that ever stops it. The only thing that ever made anyone listen to me." She pressed the folder forward and then pulled it back. "I'm not giving you these," she said. "You don't need to carry all our ghosts. The detective has copies." She swallowed. "I wanted you to know I believe you." Then she did something that surprised me. She reached her hand out. Not to me. To my stomach. She didn't touch me, she just held her palm there in the air, as if in blessing. "Be ordinary," she said to the space where our baby was. "Be boring and healthy, be nothing like this." Her mouth twisted into something that could have been a laugh but wasn't. That would be a miracle. We watched her walk back down the path under the soft yellow of the porch light, shoulders set. When the door clicked shut, my phone buzzed. A text from my sister-in-law lit the screen. "I'm at the station," it said. "Giving my statement. I'm going to therapy. Weekly. No punctuation hearts, no linked reels, no please. Just that." I stared until the words doubled, then put the phone face down and set my palm on the cool wood line of the crib. The detective called again on Sunday. S had violated her order twice in one day, the park perimeter and a third-party invite sent through the same throwaway account, time-stamped an hour after she was told not to contact us in any way. The judge was tired in his voice, he said, when he read the violations. "No bail this time. Mandatory evaluation. Surrender of devices. It's still going to be paperwork and waiting and showing up," he told us. "But for the first time in a while, you can sleep." We didn't sleep, not right away. We did something more ridiculous. We sat on the floor of the nursery with a laundry basket of tiny onesies and washed them by hand in the sink with the good soap because my husband insists they smell like hotels otherwise. We hung them over the shower rod, white little ghosts in a row. He put his ear to my belly and spoke into it like we were on the world's tiniest phone call. "Hey," he said. "It's us." Our baby kicked so hard he jerked back and knocked his head on the crib and swore softly, and I laughed until I cried, wet cheeks and hiccup breaths and everything. Before we went to bed, he taped the temporary order back up on the fridge because the corner had curled, and he slid the fresh appointment card from our OB next to it, security code circled twice in heavy pen. The detective's number is on a post-it above the light switch. The little photo from today's video chat with my grandmother, her in her kitchen, holding a lemon up like an offering, is magneted next to the ultrasound now, a funny little constellation of proof that life isn't just the worst thing that happened to you lately. We turned off the kitchen light and the ink of the judge's signature shone for a second in the dim like a river that knows where it's going. In the dark, my husband said, "Do you hear that?" And I thought he meant footsteps, or something on the porch, or the wet hiss of the tires outside, and then I realized he meant the other thing entirely, the sound of the house breathing. The sound of nothing happening. The good kind.